sometimes represented by like those little dragon tiers. You know what I'm talking about? That you go spend like $1 on, and here's 20 million of them. It's like I said, that's where all my really close friendships have come from. And yeah, it requires commitment. Yeah, it requires a lot of times like a big uphill climb to get it going. But I think personally that it's definitely well worth the amount of work you put into it. Do you have anything to add?
Not very much, because I've never really like have started a group. My best tip is probably like see if you can find like a Facebook group or a Facebook page dedicated to like gaming in your area, and see if you can get something together that way.
Yeah.
Because I've met a lot of people in like Facebook groups talking about like stuff we like, and I'm sure like I haven't met anybody talking about like Pathfinder on Facebook or anything, but I bet there's plenty of people out there that are in your area looking to game.
Yeah, you never know. Like throughout, I don't think I've ever actually started a group so much as I just like I'll piggyback on one that has started, or suddenly all 5 or 6 dudes in the room, the conversation will shift to D&D, and then here we are rolling up characters. And it's always been like people from all walks of life are into this game. It's pretty universal, and really sometimes it's like an outsider would probably imagine like the big old neck-bearded losers who stink at the like card shops and stuff like that. That's your quote-unquote gamer, but it's everybody. Like I know military guys that are into it. I know like even like just running down the bottom here, you see a lot of people that are just like average Joes, and this is not calling out Joe, but you understand.
Singling you out.
Oh yeah, no. It's just a matter of sometimes you have to just look around, and you never know what you're gonna find. It's like just 5 minutes ago, we're all talking about how we run around with D20s in our pockets.
Sometimes you gotta like hang out with a couple people like in real life. Like there's this guy I was friends with, and I'm like, hey, I bet you'd like Pathfinder. Do you want to come hang out with us? And he never did, but I'm still open to the idea. So sometimes you just gotta like ask people, you know?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's
also, like, pretty much, like I said, Roseville, Missouri, like 30 minutes away from where I live, there's a little magic store, and those stores are all over the place. And I mean, the nerds will congregate, and oftentimes, like, I don't know what D&D calls it. I think it's called like Adventure League, I believe. Pathfinder has Pathfinder Society, Starfinder Society, stuff like that. The LGSs will call them out and then just go there, and then that's where they are.
And that is where a lot of people go to. They go to places like, or they'll think about that. They'll think about Adventure League and stuff like that. So, how about we open the floor up a little bit to not just you guys, but also Joe, Jeff, and Donald, to kind of jump in and talk about how you guys started up with your particular game that you're running on Black Dragon Gaming, and where that group kind of filtered in and came from. Because I know we've been kind of told, and it's been insinuated, that the group was a group before they started streaming, which happens quite a bit. So knowing that kind of backstory is always fun.
Okay. That story goes back, what? We were just talking about this last week. I think it was like 3 years.
Yeah.
I found myself with some extra time on my hands and somebody who I don't talk to anymore.
That's
but I would
how
like,
it always goes.
Yeah, for sure.
That's like everybody but Joe now.
Yeah.
Pretty much. We don't.
Well, we got, look at the panel. We have friends.
Well, we do, but I'm saying like from the
original days.
Like people like
we've got new
IRL
friends now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of them are Canadian.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this guy I don't talk to, he gets a hold of me. He says there's a Pathfinder group starting up at that little game store I was talking about, and I have nothing else to do, and my like crappy 3.5 groups that I'd played in at the time were all really wishy-washy and terrible anyway. So I jump on it and I go there, and as at least I think when all these groups start, how it tends to be, there's like 9 guys there, ranging in age from, I think Ezra was like 13 years old, yeah, up to like mid-30s. And from 9 guys in one day to like 4 dudes next week, essentially. And then since since then, there's been like people come in, people go, people come in, go again. And 3 years later, a couple of campaigns, well, more than a couple, several campaigns later, now it's down in real life to Joe and Sarah and myself. And as far as Jeff and Van's not here, but Van and Donald, I put $1 in the Dawnforge cast patrons jar every month, and in exchange for that, I'm put on a Facebook group, and I got drawn for a random 5e game. It was only like, 5-6 sessions, I think, something like that. And that's where I met Donald and Jeff and all these other guys. And I have a thing that if I'm going to join somebody's group, I'm not joining to just like piggyback. I feel like kind of like I owe it to them that now I need to GM at least one game for them because I know how much work that is. So I just kind of threw it against the wall and see what stuck, basically. Then I got Donald and I got Van, who's not here. I wish Van would be here, but he's got his kids. And again, Jeff, door's always open. And
Yep.
Joe pretty much
I'm
just
probably
kind of
going to take you back up on that soon. I had to drop out for a bit because we were playing in a little mini campaign that was super fun. Online gaming has been like my save since I moved. Because I moved out to the middle of nowhere, North Carolina, and I had like an awesome gaming group in Phoenix, Arizona. Everything was fantastic, and everybody like brought food, and there was cookies and grand old time. So I'm just like, I love this. And then they're like, hey, do you want a promotion? Go move out to the middle of nowhere. So like online gaming has been like my life, my floating device. Like I'm not living, but I am surviving. So
You're just hanging on for dear life.
Hanging on, but like I'm still in there. So I definitely would say that like,
yeah,
if you can't find anything in person, Roll20 will be like, you know, it'll get you over there. It's a nutrient bar. It's not like that delicious home cooked meal you want, but if you need your gaming calories so you don't die of fun starvation, I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Hey, we can all meet up at like Gen Con or something and have a big fucking group.
I'm down. I am so down.
Yeah.
Really though, as I'm jamming, I'm starting to like Roll20 a lot better, and that's mostly because somebody who wants to remain anonymous bought me a year of Plus, and so now I have dynamic lighting, and dynamic lighting is super sweet to play around with. Although I screw it up like half the time. It's still like
it gives the troll omniscience.
Yeah.
Who is this? Who is that?
You never realize how important dark vision is until you just keep it from everybody. But yeah, that's basically our story.
Yeah, and there's some great stories from the 3-year group that Tommy and I and Sarah have had of also what not to do.
Yeah, I was actually thinking next week when we go over to my house, I was thinking we just like talk for an hour about all the terrible things that we've seen because it's probably really hilarious and we're really good at just rambling. So
worst D&D ever. What was that, Donald?
I've got a lot of those.
Sweet. Okay, canon. I'm calling it.
One thing that I found worked for me quite well for in-person and online games is have a processing process to get to know the person if they're a good fit or not. I generally find me as a game master, I like having a certain mindset of players that I get to play with or GM. Yeah. So if you process people if they're a good fit or not, you invite them to the game, have a nice short one-on-one talk, get to know them as a person, and if they pass your test, they get to play. And I generally find forming a social contract, what is acceptable, what is not, and how long the game would actually last for, helps get a lot of the details out, especially if you tell this information ahead of time when you put the forum process.
Indeed.
Yeah, I've definitely had some really bad experiences that could have been solved by just kind of getting to know the person a little more.
Yeah.
That's why session 0 is so important.
Yeah.
Yes,
for sure.
Sessions before that.
Session 0 is a must for me for all of my games to iron out all the details, so we have I didn't know about that, and have hurt feelings.
Yeah, we had a guy come around for a while, and like we were like, "Oh, this guy seems pretty cool. We don't really know him very well, but he can come over," and end up being not so nice.
He found it out. He found 12. He found out that bleed damage doesn't stack, and got really upset about it. It was real bad. It was a nightmare.
Yeah, but I mean, what can you do? I guess
laugh about it now on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell good stories that you get views for online.
It's okay. He doesn't watch this video.
Yeah.
I think a lesson we can learn from that, and we're not, I don't want to get into the exact reason probably why he was having that problem, but he was definitely having some issues at home. And I think the session 0, I think this should be like session -2, just so you can like meet someone and like find out like, why is this guy so angry about everything? Maybe we shouldn't hang out with him because at some point Joe's going to get into a huge argument with him about bleed damage.
Yeah, for sure. He also got really uncomfortably close to everybody, including the person to whom I am married.
And he he tried to like pick me up once, and I'm without consent, and I'm just like, oh no, I don't know what to do here. This is weird.
He also nearly tore down the map we had hanging on the wall with his ass.
Yeah, he did.
Oh yeah, it's right over there now.
Yeah, we have it. It's good.
It's kind of Get to know your players before you have them coming over to your house, the place you live.
Lessons learned. Lessons learned. All right, then. Well, we'll build on those then, and we'll switch it over to End of Planar Crossroads. I'm going to let Kane and then Greg talk about how they have other groups that they game with. So maybe they can tell us and regale us on how those groups have stayed together for so long, or what they think might have done that, before we jump into the story of how the End of Planar Crossroads got together. So, take it away, Kane.
Greg, do you want to go first, or should I? Me? So, I was always surprised because I had done a lot of D&D really early on in person, and was really apprehensive about doing it online with people that I couldn't, like, touch, or if they started an argument with me over bleed damage, sucker punch. It's rough up here. It's cold. Everybody's angry. So, like, now, as it stands, I have this game we play on Tuesdays that I play with the End of Planar Crossroads. I have a Saturday game that I play in person sometimes when we get time, that I've been playing in since high school. A game with some friends of mine who got married and moved out to Leduc. A fourth game that plays whenever they... Like, I could be in, I think it's 7 different games, most of them in person, if I really, really wanted to, and I quit my job. But as far as starting groups goes, it's always sort of been a Cinderella story of happy coincidence after happy coincidence, where everything really just sort of fell into place for me when we wanted to start a group. Obviously, there's the game I've been playing in with a bunch of my friends ever since high school. That's the one that's been going on for like 7-8 years. It's been going on forever. We've done multiple campaigns. Some of my favorite characters are from that group that I think about all the time because they're doofy nonsense when I was still learning how to play the game.
All right.
I feel like I've gotten off track.
Maybe a little bit, but yeah, and that's so you built that gaming group built up from a long-term friendship type of situation going on. So those groups,
yeah, and like a couple of those groups were all people I knew from school, and some of them were interested in the game when we were in school, and some of them didn't become interested in it until after we graduated.
Yep, and that seems to happen a lot. That seems to happen when you have someone that's gamed a long time. They've made those friends and they've kept them for a long time and kept them for a while. Similar to what Tommy and all of them were saying about how they knew each other for a while before they started streaming and stuff like that, before anything became anything online. I'm not sure if Greg kind of falls into the same situation or not, if Greg and Colin have that same situation going on, because I think Colin's fairly new to tabletopping. Am I incorrect that you are fairly new? I know you started with 5e, I thought.
I am I actually started with 3.5 back when the edition that shall not be named was new.
I like 4th edition, and I will argue with you about it.
You know what? I honestly can't argue back because I have never played it. I've been avoiding it like the plague. So if you like it, maybe I ought to give it a shot. But that's when I started actual tabletopping. But way before then, I was doing live action roleplay. Back is like, I don't know, maybe 6. We had pseudo D&D systems where you'd roll dice or draw numbers out of a hat to determine damage and how much HP and how much gold we got from monsters, stuff like that. And it was a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
I sort of took that experience with me to other more tabletop games, more, I guess, formalized versions of D&D.
That is something that I hadn't really thought about, of LARP coming into tabletop, even though there's that obvious crossover of them both of them usually being fantasy based or different things like that, different type of worlds and using the imagination and all those things. The same human mechanics are happening, so
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I think what first got me into tabletop gaming actually wasn't even a tabletop game. It was just a game my friend and I made, our own system where we would sometimes roll dice, sometimes just determine based on how well something worked or whatever, but that's what sort of got me into the sci-fi, fantasy, whatever genre gaming thing, and I've always wanted to do tabletop since I started with that.
all right. So a person got into tabletop because of their desire to share those stories, and that seems to be a driving force within a lot of people that play D&D, is that they want to tell some stories, and that's always good to hear. I like that, because then those people can be turned into GMs. But that aside, what about you, Greg? Have you you had at least 3 groups, if you counted us going at one point? So
Yeah. Well, it depends, really. For me, it's one of those things where I've played since, oh God, I want to say 1990, 1991, when I was first introduced by actually my stepmother. So I've had groups that have played throughout elementary, high school, university, first time round, now second time round. But it's one of those things where the easiest way I find to get people is convert them. At least if you're doing it in your home life, which is kind of what I ended up doing, is scheming, conniving, basically just bribing people to actually play with me. And that's kind of how I ended up actually getting people to join, was to tell people, this is not as bad as you might actually think it is. So just give it a shot. It'll be fine.
yeah, it won't kill you. There's no possession. You fight the demons. It's the whole point.
It's called getting together and coming up with creative solutions to problems.
There you go.
Yeah, of course. The biggest thing I find, though, to keep people sort of together is to try to work out schedules, and that's the biggest issue that I believe at least all my groups are having as of right now, from the standpoint of it's very difficult for everybody to sort of meet and come up with good times to actually do things. And that's the unfortunate thing, is that timing will always get in the way, which is one of the great things about online gaming and online tabletop, is that it is a lot easier to get people together online from that standpoint.
Yes, and
It's collective team building and conflict resolution.
There
You
you
can
go.
put that on a resume. I know I do.
I have that, I think, somewhere on my resume under skills.
I'm
That
so
works
glad you
much
know
better
that.
because
Not
when I
the
put it on
only
my
one that does
resume,
that.
it's just murder hoboing, and that doesn't come off as well.
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel like an employer would look at that and be like, "That's a skill we need." Maybe. I mean, there might be trades if there was some sort of hitman association.
You work for the
Go move to
mafia.
a city where the homeless problem is just really, really, really bad.
I mean, it might work. You could move to New York. It would probably get you a job in New York.
There you go.
Having this would be a odd thing that I think at times when I'm just killing time at work and just making time go faster is thinking, what would my character resume look like? Murder hovering, dungeoneering, going through dungeons, saving princess, stealing gems.
Pretending to be lawful neutral when you're actually lawful evil.
Yes. A adventurer resume would be quite interesting to read.
Yeah.
Maybe that should be part of the questionnaire when you're starting new games, is you have to fill out an adventurer's resume.
Can we do that next time?
Yeah, I'm going for that. You just
I
came up
think we're
with
going
an
to be
idea
adding
that I
that
like.
to said questionnaire. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think,
I have to do enough of that in real life. Ugh.
well, you go there, but a brief story of how we got started as a gaming group goes something like this.
Oh yeah, we literally filled out resumes.
No, well, we were not patrons. We were subscribers of myself, Kane, Alex, who plays on our games, Joel, who was on our games, and two other people who are no longer, who dropped off fairly early in our gaming career, John and Don, and we all played in a campaign on DFC called the Crucible of Champions, and it was the first one he ever did, and it was the only one that he did this way, I think. But we all played together, and there was a kind of break in there where the schedules, like was talked about, the schedules with Andrew, who was the GM, wasn't working out to where he could be on those days. So what happened is I was like, okay, well, I'll run a game for them in between so that they can, play as we're trying to finish this up with DFC. So I did that, and I was like, I like playing with these guys. I'd really like to keep this up, and we just used the same characters because it's kind of to have put some new ones together. So we just used those characters in kind of a different alternate universe type setup, and that's where I decided, when this all quits, I'm going to go ahead and ask them if they want to do it on a regular basis. And soon enough, that ended, and we did. I was able to hold on to all 6 of them for a little while. All 6 of us held together for a little while, and we started up the game.
Don, I think Don was the first to drop out, and he dropped out actually pretty quick.
Yeah, he was like,
Don was. If you go to the Don Forge cast page and look up the Crucible of Champions, Don was the player of Farouk the Desert Mouse.
yes,
And I really, Don was great to play with. Don was great to play with because he was an incredibly clever role player, but he was also very busy.
yeah.
Unfortunately.
He was a teacher and very busy, so he didn't get to stay on, which was unfortunate because he was of us. He was one of the best role players. Very quick with his thoughts on how his character would react and stuff like that. And we all liked Farouk the Desert Mouse. So, and
He was our greatest thespian.
he exists within my homebrew world. So, there you go. But that's how the end of Planar Crossroads, the main group, got started. It basically dwindled down slowly to where Don cut out fairly early. Didn't even make it to second session, I don't think. Might not have made it to first session of what I had titled as our other campaign. And John stayed on for 6 months, at least, because he made it all the way to the other side of the continent with y'all. He made it all the way to Port.
Yeah, I want to say at least halfway through beginnings and endings.
Mm-hmm. So he made it all the way through that, at least 6 months through that, and then he had to drop out for school. So it boiled down to myself, Alex, Kane, and Joel. And running for 3 people, and this is something that people can run into too, running for 3 people is a little tough when one of those 3 people can't make it, because then it becomes a 2-person game. When there's that third person to bounce off of, it actually makes a fair difference. So I like to have 3 to 6 people or so. I've run, I think I've ran 7 at one point, but I didn't like it that much. So no more than, it just depends. It just depends. But we got all that going, and for a long time it was just them 3. And we had to run I ran just them. And they were having fun in the campaign, but we would miss too many for everybody going off for a session here or a session there. And we couldn't really keep the flow going. So we're like, okay, we need some new blood. One person I just got off of Facebook because he was interested, and I was like, okay. So we tried him out. He didn't work out that long at all. He was he had a lot of crossover, weird, wild stuff that he did with his character, and he didn't really fit with the mood of the campaign. So brought in not getting into that'd take too long. But we had someone come in and didn't work out. And so the next time we did it, now you know who I'm talking about now. Yeah. No.
Yeah, no, he was a super nice guy, but he was playing a troll Titan Mauler that he had brought over, like converted from a game of Shadowrun he had been playing.
Yeah, he had come through a warp into this particular dimension, and it just did not mesh well with the rest of the group. And he as a person didn't stick around with the group anyway. And all of our games have been online, so if you don't stick around, it's because you don't want to, or there's a scheduling problem. So we didn't worry about it too much. We're like, if you want to be here, you'll be here. If you can't, you can't.
Yeah, and
so, and then
it's always better to just. I'm a pretty firm believer in it's better to just not play than to be in a game that you're not having fun in.
Yeah. Even if we're the ones you're not having fun with, that's okay. You can say, I want a different type of game. I'm going to let you guys finish this, you guys, and we'll go do what we do, and you go do what you do. It's okay. And we went along that way, went along a little bit, a few more months, and it was like, we need some more. So I was like, okay, we'll add 1, maybe 2 more people. That's what we do. We'll add 1 or 2 more people. That'll be good. I'll be running for 5 people. That's my prime range. No, it didn't turn out that way. Because first what happened is we did an actual survey thing. Not a survey necessarily, but I made up a role-played flyer that I put onto Facebook. And here is a tip for people that are playing Pathfinder but can't find players. Go and advertise into 5e and character conversion things and stuff like that too. Because if you do, you're able to get players that way. And I might let Greg and Colin jump in here to describe their experience. It was I did very much what Donald was talking about with I had questionnaire and stuff like that. So they can tell you how that experience went for them.
I'll let you go ahead, Colin.
All right. Well, for me, when I first came on, I wanted to make a good impression. I wanted to be there just a little bit early. And so I saw the link and I came in and they were interviewing Greg and I had no idea that they were even interviewing him. I was just sitting there with it on mute until somebody told me something. I figured, oh, well, they're off doing something. They'll send me a message whenever they're ready. But at least they know I'm here. And so I came in a little bit too early, I guess. But after that, there was a...
Showed you're ready. It was a gumption, you know?
Yes, I was very eager. But the thing was that there's sort of this little interview process thing that they put me through where they gave me a little questionnaire, like if you were going by and there were villains in this room, but that room wasn't your objective was further down the hall, what do you do? So I told them, well, kind of depends on what character I'm playing, but if I were thinking in advance, I would probably have someone set a little trap there in case we need to make a hasty escape, and then leave a trap for them while we go on to the other room. And there were that was one question that stuck out to me. The other one that really stuck out was Adam told me the story of Old Man Jenkins, where they'd been traveling with him across a continent and they'd gone through I think 6 months of real-time sessions to get him there. And all this time there was this box that you weren't supposed to look in because it could kill you if you looked in it, and there was some secret object in there that you didn't know what it was, but it was very important. You had to transport it across the continent.
Yeah, Kane. Yeah, Kane. That was great,
And
wasn't
so
I'm still so fucking mad at you.
and then the last question they asked was, you finally get there, and he goes, okay, get him across this continent. Do you want to see what's in the box? I go, yeah, okay. And so he does all these things with his hands, and you just got to know how to open it right. And the box opens, and there's a dwarven drinking flask inside.
it was dwarven. It was dwarven.
No,
You're close.
What was it called?
Dwarven drinking breeches.
Dwarven drinking pants.
Yeah. That's
Dwarven drinking breeches. Okay.
It was a pair of magical pants that took us 8 months to transport across country because some crazy old bastard wasn't willing to, Amazon that shit across country.
And as the question went, and it was, so now that you've done all this, you know what it is. How do you, as a player, not as a character, react to that? And I go, oh man, as a character, I would probably be so mad, but as a player, I would be laughing my head off. Because that's really pulling the wool over somebody's eyes there. That's
well, yeah.
I thought it was funny.
I thought it was quite funny.
I'm 3 days of butt bruised over that still now. The pants were basically a device to get to travel with Jenkins, because Jenkins had ulterior motives for us. But
Johnson.
Fucking Jenkins.
Johnson.
Jenkins.
But yeah, that's what I remember most from the interview. And a few days later, they said, "Hey, you want to you want to join us? And I said, sure. They go, we got to finish our current session, but afterwards we'll be starting a new one. You can start creating your character now if you want to, and the rest is pretty much on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, our entire sessions with both you and Greg have been on YouTube. What were your impressions of the question/interview thing, Greg?
See, when Kane's talking about just having to fill out a questionnaire, like, come on, I had to do a cover letter, my CV. No, you know what? It was a really good idea in order to get an idea, get a grasp of what kind of people you're getting into the game, right? So having that is definitely a good call, just to sort of gain a better appreciation for essentially what's going on, right? So there's definitely good movement there, I found. So having an idea, okay, how are you going to react? How are you going to play this out? Are you just a murderer hobo? Are you, going to be a crit fisher paladin who has really stupid luck? There are things that you have to find out before inviting people into your group.
Yeah. It's good to know if your player is going to be rolling crits almost every time he rolls, because then you need to throw monsters at them that can't be critted. Otherwise, he will crit them. He will do it. So it's just a matter of time.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be too worried, Adam. I've gone through this module parts of it before. I've seen the end game stat blocks. We're gonna need all the help we can get.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what goes on. I've prepared up to the end of this module, so we'll find out. We'll find out. But that's kind of how we got started and put together. But yeah, like Donald was saying, that's what we kind of used. If someone wants to know what it looks like, you can go over to the Facebook group that we have, the Interplater Crossroads, and we actually have the flyer there that I had and used. It's the one that has the Dark Souls character on it, and then it gives a small RP blurb about this game starting up. We're looking for adventurers, or adventurers wanted is what it said at the top. And you'd be surprised how that will affect the type of people that come in on your group. Because if you RP out a flyer, if your flyer is RP'd out, you're more likely to get people that RP to respond. If you have a, hey, we're starting up a group, we're going to play, it's going to have this campaign's going to have this and this, much like Roll20 does with theirs. Like, they give the stats and the stuff like that. There's not a lot of role play associated with that listing unless you actually stop and read if someone's put some role play into that. Then that's going to attract a different type of player. It's not good or bad, it's just a different type of player. So if you figure out what type of player you want, if you want a more RP heavy player, then work up a RP heavier type of flyer. Or the converse is also true. So that's one suggestion I do have for those that want to go ahead and do a flyer. Also, go ahead, if you are, like was mentioned again, if you're going into an existing group, or you're someone in an existing group looking for more people, doing interviews is best. And if you're online, doing interviews like we did where we had more than just me, the GM, there, have just like people come in and meet the group or parts of the group, that makes a big difference, because then those people can give you feedback on what they thought about the others. Because Alex, I think, was there for most of the interviews. Kane was there for an interview or two. Joel was there for an interview or two. And because I had that extra input, I was able to get more information about what people wanted and liked. One thing I can say is that we had one person that applied that was wanting to He said up front he likes to RP weird characters. He had like a cheat. He wanted to RP out a very anime-esque girl. He's a guy a guy that only plays girl characters type thing, and he was up front about what he wanted to play. And I was like, don't know that type of mentality is going to fit. Not necessarily a guy playing a girl, because we got Colin too, and I had a small apprehension.
Colin only plays girls.
Yeah. To be fair to Colin,
He's played some guy characters.
to be fair to Colin, he of the 3 characters he played, 2 of them were girls and 1 of them was a male. So it doesn't really, that part doesn't really matter to me. But it was the way it was presented. I got to see this person's application
2.
come in. Yes, 2 girls. You've played 2 males? I'm missing.
Two guys as well.
So he's 50-50.
Wolfern and Cookie.
Cookie, that's right.
Characters
Cookie.
for one-shots don't count.
Oh, okay.
Uthrin was not a one shot. He had like 2 shots. So, but those are my suggestions. Does Black Dragon Gaming have anything that they want to say about what we've been saying, or anything come up to them?
I hope you
honestly,
did.
I caught
Okay.
out after that.
I thought we lost y'all. I was worried.
And you're coming in as like super mega. Can you repeat yourself?
You got really robot-y there.
Caught none of that.
Yeah, no, I am super robot everywhere. Beep boop, all of you. One sec, let me try something.
It's okay. It'll be edited down for time.
No, it won't. I'm the one that has to edit it.
We can fix this in post.
Because that never happens in our games.
Yeah, no one ever wastes time in our games. It never happens. Oh, there it goes.
It is the cat trying to get Tommy and Sarah.
Yeah, the cat.
Entirely possible.
I bet it was the cat. I bet it was the cat, because the cat was like, "That's a nice chat you're having. Be a shame if someone disconnected it."
Yes.
That's a nice chat you're having right there.
Cutting the video feed might help your connection.
Better?
Maybe I have a theory. I think the cat cast Phantom Killer on Sarah.
Dude, I have
and
no idea
Tommy.
where that cat is right now.
They're upstairs sleeping. They are upstairs.
Hey, everybody
Chairs
knows.
sleeping.
Are we coming through now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Some are better. So, what are some opinions you guys might have on what we've been
I guess I
talking
just had to
about?
shoot my video in the face. As far as an actual interview process goes, I've never really done that one. All of my games have been, like I said, I know everybody, or it's been a really informal, like Magic the Gathering. I was like, hey, I know you, let's hang out, throw some cards around, and then it comes up that we're both into tabletop stuff, and then there it is.
To be fair, though, that's how I met the person with the anger issues and all that stuff.
That is true.
But, I mean, you can't win them all, you know?
Yeah, you're not gonna.
At the same time, that's how. Well, no, Josh and we met you through actually, like the first like super group at Forever 10 that was formed. So
Yeah,
and then that.
that is true. And there really wasn't an interview process for that I know of. I was just kind of, hey, there's a Pathfinder game.
There was a session 0 that involved like kind of like seeing how everyone worked together, and there were just so many people that it wasn't really like an interview process. Would have been nice because we would have been able to root out like, oh, this guy's going to argue with you and try and kick you out of his house, or oh, this guy's going to accidentally crit himself when he's just being a jerk.
Oh, God.
His only successful hit that entire campaign. I'm gonna kill myself. Rolls a natural 20, walks out as just flawless. But yeah, I agree. Like, I didn't at first. I wasn't heroes so much. It was just like, now we're going here. We'll talk about here's some tabletop stuff. But now I'm definitely super into them. It's especially when you're just meeting people like cold online, and also there's an old CRPG based on a 3.0 or older module. It's called Temple of Elemental Evil.
Is it Temple of
The
Elemental
first-
Evil, or is it Return to the Temple of Elemental Evil? This is important.
It's not Return. It's the one where the dude's wearing an awkward pink robe or something. And all the art's real bad. But anyway, in the early 2000s, it's a computer game. And in there, there's like zero role playing, really, for the most part. But it at character creation, it makes you choose a party alignment. And when you're making your 5 characters for your party, have to be within one step of that alignment. So like, say you choose lawful neutral, everyone must be neutral, or lawful evil, or lawful neutral, or lawful good, and you guys get the idea. I think like, if you're a little unsure about who's gonna do what and what chaotic evil means to somebody, that might be a good way to like filter it out a little bit.
Well, I mean, come on now.
Because like,
You
I mean,
guys-
like right now,
You guys gave me
Friday,
a hard
I'd
time
like-
about that whole cosmic morality type thing going on last chat, and now I'm hearing that we should have alignments in our gaming groups. What's the... Oh no. I'm just giving y'all a hard time.
I just say that because like I've had people that I'm chaotic evil hammer.
Shit,
Like
some-
last Friday, and Sarah's jamming for this. Joe's playing. He's not chaotic evil yet, but he keeps calling himself chaotic neutral, leaning on chaotic evil. And I'm playing a paladin, and I think we meshed. We haven't killed each other yet. So,
But I'm in control of all of the orcs, and he's in control of all of the paladins in the area. So
yeah.
Paladins will probably beat the orcs.
As a player, as a person, I always enjoy playing a rogue when it comes to having a paladin in a party. It has a conflict between the two. Are you guilty? Have you stole something?
Well, I actually...
No. Paladin's role is, as soon as a new NPC comes into the game, detect evil.
Yes. Why do you think paladin have detect evil on them? To not to use it?
They
just
have it
screw
so
up
they
when
can
the
go
evil
party
guys
killing.
have invisibility.
To be
Yeah.
a gigantic pain in the ass to anyone not wearing lead-lined clothing.
If you want to throw off a paladin, there's a few magic items that change your alignments when it comes to detecting alignments, which is pretty handy.
Yeah. Or just like realize that, and this came up in our last session 0. I asked, basically for Van and Donald's sake, how they felt about PvP, and it was just straight up like, no, we are not doing that, which is super hard to run. If you guys have been watching my game, there's like, we've got lawful evil and like neutral good, and they're essentially, and I kind of did it to myself to put them on sort of pseudo 2 sides of the rebellion to see what would happen, because I trust these guys. But like, if you're coming in with that like pen and paper, like, you cannot do this. Sometimes you gotta set ground rules.
The one thing that I have learned about playing selfish character is selfishness have to serve a purpose. There is the evil dom and evil genius.
Yeah, that is very true.
You know, Adam, you brought up earlier talking about cutting down a group, and like when there's a third person who's not really there, and you have to GM for 2 people, it becomes really difficult. And I completely agree with that. Having in the middle of a game someone leave, and I don't hold it against him. He had reasons to do so. He's probably, if this gets on YouTube, he's probably going to watch it at some point. It's fine, Josh. You're cool. But oh my God, I had an entire empire that this guy was interacting with, who was helping with other players' stuff, and he leaves, and I'm just like, what am I going to do with the Ulfin Empire? There's nothing I can do with them. It's like, okay, I guess we'll have an NPC run around with them who's associated with them, so it can there be a reason, and it's like, I don't know.
That
You
NPC
just
stopped
send
a
a
lot of my
plague
characters
to them,
from
and
dying
then the
horribly.
plague wipes out the whole empire.
The thing is, they're super important to the story
Christmas
because of
tree,
him.
yeah.
And it's
Yeah. I'm very a lot of critics go a lot of ways.
You say that because I've just made fun of his Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Thankful.
So, yes. Now,
There's nothing wrong with having your Christmas tree up already, man.
Oh no, I would have my Christmas tree up right now if I had the choice, but I have cats,
So long as he's not playing Christmas music on his radio all the time.
Oh, I have
No, that
no
was like
I'm
my
already
my
playing.
wife is like super into decorating, so I'm just like, do what you want, whatever makes you happy. I love you.
Well, yeah, no, that's totally fine. I'm just saying, if you had Christmas music playing already, you might be a sociopath.
No, I literally completely off topic. It's like I don't like Christmas music during Christmas because like everybody likes it. I'm the type to listen to Christmas music in June just because I'm a cool rebel.
Yeah! Yeah!
You gotta follow your heart, man. Sometimes you just want to have a holly jolly summer.
It's especially if you want to be a bit more of a rebel. There are certain convention ovens you can set music to when something is done. So one place where I work, the oven, the timer noises, it is a Christmas song for every single option.
Oh.
So
Ugh, that sounds terrifying.
yeah, it is a pain around Christmas time. Really, I need to listen to Christmas music, and I hear this noise every single day.
all right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we're like an hour in, and
Yes.
we haven't really talked about keeping a
Keeping
group
them
together. We've done a bunch of how to start a group and like our own.
We've done some
stories,
rambling.
but we haven't really talked about how to keep a group together. So once you've got a group together and you've been playing together for a while, what are steps you might take to sort of mitigate that group, like real life, from keeping you from playing?
From your game. Well, for me, it's like it's kind of like being married, and I'm married to one of them. But
Ew.
it's basically just like I said, it's like being married, but you have a bunch of different wives, more or less.
Oh.
Like, or well, I'm not gonna assume someone's like sexuality. What I'm trying to get at here is it's just a huge commitment, and if it's something you want, and it's something like that you're trying to do every week with people, you kind of just make the time for it. I mean, most games, like on Saturday, that's my noon to 9 is hanging out, and then Friday it's like 6:30 to 11-ish, something like. It's basically my whole weekend, but it's because I enjoy it. And as your groups go on, unless you like make that connection, make that time for it, eventually I think they just kind of peter off.
That's
You
fair.
also have to like through tabletopping, you meet a lot of really different people, and the only thing you're gonna have in common with them is that you like to roll dice and like punch goblins. Like through it's not a very long tabletopping career, but through it I've met like fundamentalist Christians, atheists, Buddhists, Neo-Norse, pagans, straight people, gay people, cisgendered people, transgendered people, and everything in between. And you just kind of like suspend your disbelief is the wrong word. You kind of like, you got to leave your stuff at the door. You got to leave your like notions about like what people are really if you're going to try to keep a group together, because eventually, like we are wont to do here in these chats, the role playing will bottom out and you guys start rambling about whatever, or in the case of like Sarah and Joe and myself, we'll talk about like real heavy shit, and then that's when you start getting to know people. And if you're gonna like be predisposed to judge somebody for X, Y, Z, then suddenly your group falls apart.
And I think sometimes it helps with that is like compartmentalization, which I've had to do that with like a lot of groups that I'm in, because anybody knows me, like on my Facebook wall, I'm and very opinionated on a bunch of stuff, but you sort of just put that in the back of your mind. I'm like, all right, for this next 3 hours, I'm not going to call out the stupid shit that you have said, and we're just going to roll the dice and enjoy it, and just sort of just put that away and go like into like a second layer of fantasy. So like I role play a personal person who's not upset by all like the craziness that you've just spout out, but instead I'm a person who just lets that slide off the back and just want to play the game. So like if you can do that for a couple hours, it's fine. I don't see how people live like that all the time. But if it's just for the sake of the game, learning to bite your tongue helps out a lot.
It helps.
To add on top of Jeff, continue, Adam.
No, go ahead. You hadn't got to talk as much as
Were you
everybody
saying
else.
something before I interrupt? Okay. To add on to Jeff, I generally find putting your differences aside and remember this is a game. This is our fun time. Let's put our difference aside and agree to get along for this time so we can have fun, play together. And I generally find for each character I made, I have a persona and mask that I have for them. So I put that hat on and be that person for that time, BA. And they have that hat and mask, and we get along easily enough. So the life lesson of leave personal business outside of X, and you will have fun. Or separate work. You should not mix work and pleasure, or something like that. But I'm rambling.
Right, and
Adam?
I think that when you get down to it, it's about what are you here to do? Okay, I am a Christian, but I know that not everybody is, and I know that I'm not playing in a world where that exists. That doesn't exist in this world, so I don't bring those things to this world. I can agree or disagree with the opinions or things that people have, but at the table in that universe, that doesn't exist, and we're here to play a game. We're not here to debate or do things like that. Unless you specifically design a role-playing scenario, a game, and everybody has to be on board for it, that's really deep and philosophical and stuff like that, then don't play a game. Don't try to force that in there. And don't try to put those deep philosophical things in there if your group's not up for. Some people don't want to play deep philosophical games. Don't, then. You're here to play a game, and even those deep philosophical games, we're really kidding ourselves if we think that that's the truth. That is impossible, because that is our truth that we're presenting. So the idea that people would bring their personal stuff to the game really does hamper groups. If you find yourself in a group like that, you can, as someone who has the GM seat a lot in the past years that we've been playing, and the other GMs in the thing can probably attest to this, you get people that come to your table that you don't know from anything. You don't know what they believe. You don't know what they're gonna say or do. And you know what? That's okay, because that's part of the game. You want that difference there so that you can get good role play, so that everybody can have fun. And actually letting those differences be there and not infringe on the characters, that's when you get some really nice stuff happening.
Tommy?
I was beep booping real hard. I'm gonna contradict the Jesus out of myself that my webcam's off because Sarah's probably losing. I think that your group is not built in the dice roll. It is not built in the character creation. No, it's built in crosstalk. And I'll lose it if I'm trying to advance the plot, especially in like a really very long and somebody's starting and everybody else is having fun. I'm just like, come on, that kind of thing. But that's where the friendships. And if you can't do that, you probably don't like have that good of a friendship in the first place. Like, I mean, there's that like that sense of we are coming on Saturday from X to Y to roll dice together. But if you want it to last for the long run, you're gonna have to, like Kane over here has been playing with the same dudes since high school, and that's probably not because they're just hanging out and throwing dice at each other.
Oh no, and we argue a lot.
It's them got to grow people.
A big part of like keeping friendships with people who aren't the same as you is being able to leave your baggage at the door and I guess more importantly, like allowing people to challenge your views. Like you can't get heavy for a second. You can't grow as a person if you live in a bubble.
Honestly, it'd be if you think about it, it'd be super weird if people like came to your house, showed up once a week, just rolled dice, didn't like say anything about like, oh, well, today I went to the grocery store and ran into this old lady and blah 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 blah. If they just came over, rolled dice, and left, that'd just be weird. It'd be weird if you didn't talk about like your life and share like stuff and become friends. You know.
Sarah, one thing I find that help me and the group that I play with bond, generally talking like half an hour before we actually play to get talking out of our system helps us understand each other a bit more, how our day is and who we are as a person. What I know about psychology, people get to know each other a bit just by listening to each other, what they say.
I mean, that's literally what we did like 10, 15 minutes before we started this. We all just kind of show up here and talk about cats, basically, was what isn't going to make it to YouTube, I guess.
Cats and how they're jerks.
And it's kind of like, also, if you can suspend your disbelief, like, it's, well, not, I keep using that word, but no, I'm using it wrong. If you can put aside, like, your predispositions and stuff, when you get immersed in the problems in the game, at least for those, like, 3 hours, it's pretty real when the monsters are coming at you, and like you kind of sometimes the bonds will just happen accidentally. Like this was well after Joe and I had like become real close friends, but there's a scenario, this is about a year ago, and that guy that we were talking about who would drop out a bunch and now there's this whole empire, he would oftentimes in the middle of our sessions, he'd go take a nap because dude would work a lot. He'd go sleep for a couple hours, wake up, and in the interim we're like level 3 and we need to cross like a chasm with a bridge that's been busted, and he's size category small, Joe is, and we have a couple of ponies and we have no idea how we're going to do this. Long story short, we feed him potions of fly, and I don't have handle animal on my ranger for some reason, so I just roll intimidate, slap it on the flank, and scream at it in Elven, and I nat 20 it. And my group's pretty nice about nat 20s and terrible about nat 1s as well, but it's just kind of in that moment. And then for like several months after, Joe and I we have ridden ponies through the sky, and it just became this thing. And Josh wasn't a part of it because he was asleep, obviously, but it's just dumb little things like that. You grow together, and if you can't grow together, if you can't, like Kane's saying, if you can't pop your bubble a little bit, just like your character should probably not be the same alignment throughout from like 1 to 20, or at least really changes worldviews, so too is that part of like a human being's growth. And that's like, it's part of the human experience. You gotta do it. Why not do it in the tabletop world?
All right. Well, we have been going for quite a bit, so I'll rattle off some machine gun things that I want to get in before we cut off, and then you guys can add in your different things. We'll kind of go down the line real quick that you want to put in there before we end. So, doing things out of game. Together, like if you are doing things that, if you're gaming online, make sure that you game, and after the game you talk about what you're doing in between time. Have in between stuff happening in the sessions, like that's when you buy stuff is in between time, or that's when you go and tell me what you're doing on your downtime, or and I give you the results of some of your downtime stuff, and things like that. Those are good things to do in between sessions, and doing things in between sessions helps solidify a group together, especially with today's society where we have group chats and group text where you can always connect those people together in ways that are going to be able to let them talk about game stuff without a bunch of stuff getting in the way and a bunch of people on a different board getting in the way. So that's something that I would want to add for people that are looking to keep a group together. Anything specific you want to add, Kane?
I would say for the fistful of people that are going to end up watching this that do play in person, the group that I mentioned before that I've been playing with since high school, we just started playing online, and that was because real life and scheduling issues has really started to affect our ability to get together in person to play. And if you're playing in person, you have to like make sure that you know that there are so many digital resources that you can access, be it Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds or the freaking Tabletop Simulator if you want to deal with that nonsense, and stuff like Masterwork tools for rules. There are so many digital resources that you can get access to make your like getting together to have the game to as Jeff said, get your nutrient bar of gaming calories. In when you can't meet up to play in person.
All right. Get your nutrient bar in when you can. And Tommy and Sarah.
I can't really think of anything to say that I haven't already said. It's kind of like just reiterating, you're going to meet people that are at least a little, probably radically different than you are. And you just kind of like, the world is a terrible enough place right now as it is. Just be nice to people and it's going to pan out for you. You're going to make friends. Like I said, like Joe and Sarah, and I mean, like, not to push Donald, Jeff, and the rest of my guys just down into the hole, but that's the best friends I've ever had in all of my life, and I met them by throwing a D20 at the table a whole bunch. Though I do agree with Kane, the internet is a super wonderful place, and it's a lot easier, like, if Jeff doesn't want to put his pants on one day, maybe he's just going to roll over to his computer and just, I'm going to get on and do this.
Hey, we're
You want to add
never...
anything in?
Nah, I think we've said everything.
We've said many
We've
things.
rambled quite a bit.
That's what we do.
Okay. All right then, Joe. Any last remarks before we sign off?
I said this along quite a while ago, but I would just say, just if someone's got something going on in their life and you can tell, just try and be understanding. And that's really all I can say is just like people have things going on in their life sometimes and they don't have control over it. Or sometimes they do, but they don't want to do anything about it. And you just gotta like let them deal with it.
Indeed.
That's been my personal experience, at least.
All right. What about you, Jeff? Anything you want to say before we close out?
Let's see. Anything to add before we sign on off? We've heard a lot about, the struggles of, real life stuff affecting your game. For me, while I was in Arizona, a lot of the good times was the escapism of that. Of the, real life stuff is going to suck for a while, but here's a couple hours on Friday night where I can put all that away, eat some cookies, and roll some dice. So for your own, mental health and well-being, try to make time where you can unwind, where this is fun. So enjoy it because it is that release. So even if real life is horrible, if you can find the time to get into this, it makes it so much better. It's a great relaxing way.
All right. Greg, anything you want to add before we head out?
To be completely honest, not a heck of a lot. I've kind of covered a lot of it in terms of the getting a group together that'll stick together to a certain extent, the idea of cross-chat. The one thing with cross-chat, though, I will sort of bring back up is the fact that on online games, cross-chat is a lot more difficult to have when you're using a system similar to, say, Google Hangouts and Discord, because somebody's going to get cut off and things make it a little bit more difficult, which is why we use chat so much. I mean, what?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you do have to pay a lot more attention to what's going on. So the cross-chatter is a little bit more difficult to have online, but it is something to address, and you do need to address in the first couple of sessions and what have you.
All right. Yes. I will say people miss quite a few things in the chat. References and statements and all that type of stuff. Doesn't make it on the air. That's our outtakes and bloopers. All right.
Hey, Alex could put the chat in the OBS window. That's on him.
Blame him.
Maybe not.
All right. Donald, any last remarks before we get this wrapped up?
Yes. We remember when it comes to tabletop games, in person or online, this is your time to play. Play the game that you want with the type of people that you want to play with, and that will guarantee the most fun that you can. This will guarantee the most fun you can have in this hobby during the time that you can play it. Life is short, so have fun.
All right.
No, your fun is wrong.
Oh. All right.
Oh no! Don't start a bad wrong fun. I don't want that.
Oh.
Well, there is legal fun that doesn't hurt no one, and there is the illegal fun that hurt people, and the legal fun that I was talking about, having fun that way.
Very well said.
All right.
There will always be that one person to take something out of content.
Okay, Colin, you get the final remarks, it looks like.
Don't fucking up.
Oh man. Well,
No pressure. No
I
pressure.
think Donald sort of got what I was gonna say for my last remarks. Was just remember it's a game. We're here to have fun. I mean that's sort of the whole point. And you know, if you're not having fun, why are you playing?
Yeah.
So just sit down, have a good time, drink some cola or some beer or whatever you want to drink, and enjoy the game.
Bratska.
All right. Well, hopefully we did ramble. We rambled quite a bit, and I apologize to everyone that was watching. I should have been a bit better about that, but I was rambling too. So we appreciate everyone watching. Next time we will be on Black Dragon Gaming's channel if everything goes according to plan, and we will be able to see you guys there for the next Around the Hearth. But until then, we'll have to say goodbye, travelers. Goodbye, YouTube.
Goodbye, travelers.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Have a good time.
Oh my god.
Bye,
Bye.
We'll probably be talking about terrible gaming experience.